Alright, y'all. Welcome back to The Problem With, where we cut through the noise and talk honestly about the broken systems running this country and the people who always seem to get left behind. I'm your host, Luis, and if this is your first time listening, here's the deal. Starting today with this episode, we're going to have every Wednesday, we're going to drop a short, raw episode like this one. It's just me, the microphone, and whatever topic I want to talk about. And then on Saturdays, that's when we go the deep, long-form, multi-part episodes that break down everything for the public education system to the white-collar crime and the celebrity privilege, and all so on and so on. But today's a Wednesday, so I got something to say. Because this week, I've been thinking about the due process. That idea, like it's tossed around in America as if it applies to everyone. We say no one's above the law. We say that the justice system works. And we say every person deserves their day in court. But let me ask you, do we actually believe that? Because when it comes to the immigrants, specifically ones that are poor, brown, or undocumented, there's no due process, there's no fair trial, and there's barely a conversation. It's either papers please, or they look at you and they tell you to get out. You're gone. No matter how long you've been here or what you've built a life with or what country you've been sent back to. So as you notice if you notice in the last couple of years and forever is how obsessed this country is obsessed with law and order. Specifically one political party. And then they chant it in rallies and they print it on t-shirts. They act like the Constitution is some sacred text, but it only applies when it's convenient to them. And if you need proof, let's look at how they treat the rich and how they treat any immigrant or poor person. Like we did in the last episode about Brett Favre. He allegedly, we're going to keep saying allegedly until he's found guilty, helped steal millions from welfare programs meant for poor families. And he still gets to pose for Wrangler ads and all that and go to interviews and act like he's the victim. Then we have our current president, Donald Trump. In 2024, he was facing up to 91 felony charges across from different criminal cases. And that's not an exaggeration. That's public record for everybody. There's no fake news, nothing. This is proof from my court cases and all that stuff. And that his crimes go from hush money cover-ups to mishandling classified documents to trying to overturn an entire election. And what happened? He got convicted in New York. He found guilty in 34 counts of falsifying business records, but he's still free. He's our president, and he's still doing all these grift sales thing even as a president. He's selling crypto, he's selling Bibles, he's selling all that. And now we have people like, for example, Honduran single mom who she missed her asylum court date because ICE sent her the wrong hearing notice. And due to an error from ICE, she got picked up and deported before her kids got home from school. So when people say America's a nation of laws, I always ask, for who? Because it seems like the richer you are, the more the system bends over or backwards to protect you. But for immigrants, especially those without money, power, or the right skin color, there's no mercy. No courtroom drama, all that stuff. Just a rush decision, a cold sale, and a one-way ticket to a country they might not even remember or might not even be from. The wild part is we convince ourselves this is the justice. We let people walk around saying like only the criminals are getting deported, as if ICE is some noble agency protecting the public. And if being poor or documented is a moral failure, that's a problem. And here's the truth. According to ICE own data, this is their own data, over 60% of people deported have no criminal record at all. None. Zero. Zip. And when they do have charges, it's usually things like a traffic violations or they were re-entry the country or misdemeanors. they're not deporting gangsters or cartel bosses. They're deporting factory workers, dishwashers, grocery store clerks, the people who actually keep this country running. So no, that's the lie about just the criminals. That's just a lie, and it's misinformation. It's a lazy excuse to justify cruelty. And I'm gonna say, if you're still repeating this in 2025, you are either a very willful ignorant or just don't care about your neighbor. So look, I'm just gonna say it. ICE is not a justice system. It's not designed to be fair. It's not designed to protect people. It's designed to disappear them. The people love to say that, well, they broke the law, they should have known the consequences. Cool. Then explain to me how someone can be arrested, processed, and deported in less than 2 days. Without a lawyer, without a hearing, and without even a phone call. That's called expedited removal, and it gives ICE agents the power to act like cops and judges. Not a court date, no second opinion, just gone. You're in a plane back to a country that you haven't seen since you were a kid, or even worse, as you have probably heard on the news, to El Salvador, to where you're not even from, to a labor camp. That's not law, and that's not order. That's just bureaucracy with a badge and no accountability. And here's the fact. Over 80% of people detained in ICE or by ICE never get their day in court. That's not an opinion, that's just a fact, and that's coming from the American Immigration Council. So much for the due process, correct? So much that the GOP claims to love, but it only applies to a certain few. And don't get me even started right now in the Trump era. Because if you think the system was broken before, the administration took a big hammer, or as they like to say, a chainsaw, and just destroyed it even more. ICE wasn't just deporting people with records. They were tearing families apart for traffic tickets. They were showing up at schools, hospitals, and courthouses, places people are supposed to feel safe, and treating anyone without papers like a fugitive, or even someone with the skin color or look slightly Hispanic. They treat them like criminals. And you know what's the worst part that exposes the game? Trump's administration deported people to countries they weren't even from. We have it like for the famous case of Abrego Garcia, got sent to El Salvador to a camp. Then we have that poor Venezuelan girl. I mean, what are we doing here? And these are documented cases, guys. We have Cameroon, Haiti, Honduras. People are being sent to places where they had no family, no home, and in some cases, they didn't even speak the language. No warning, nothing. Just a fly home, allegedly home to them. Meanwhile, this is the part that should really piss everyone off. Trump went on the TV talking about bringing in white South African farmers, Afrikaans. If you don't know anything about the Afrikaans, is they were part of apartheid. That the white South Africans were originally immigrants from the Dutch, and they came into South Africa and colonized that country. So here's what happened. So Trump brought these white South African farmers and calling them victims of a large-scale killings, a white genocide. And suggesting they should be offered refugee status. It wasn't suggested, it was also given. So let me get straight. If you're a black or brown immigrant or Muslim or anything, fleeing poverty and violence, you're a criminal. You're an illegal. And they get cages and ankle monitors. But white immigrants from South Africa, they get protection, sympathy, and maybe even a fast track to citizenship. Look, I don't care how you spin this. That's not an immigration policy. That's racial politics. This country didn't suddenly get strict about immigration. It got selective. If you're still defending about they didn't do it the right way, or we're just enforcing the law, I got news for you. That law is changes based on what you look like or where you're from. There's no black and white here. And you know what finally pushed me to hit record on this episode was a conversation I had with a colleague, someone I used to respect. We were talking about the immigration system, and I just said, it's broken. It's a cruel system, and people are being deported with no hearings, no warnings, no defense, nothing. And he just said, well, they're not citizens. They broke the law. They're not our people. They're enemies. Enemies. Like we're in a war. And I sat there thinking, how do you even respond to that? Because once you start labeling everybody like everyday people, folks who you just walk around, they mow your lawn or deliver groceries, or just you're even your own neighbors or people who help raise your kids as enemies, you already decided that their lives don't matter. That's the kind of language that doesn't come from a place of law. It comes from a place of hatred. And here's the part that never wants to talk about the facts. The majority of people deported by us have no criminal records. None. We are stated over 60% of deportation in recent years were people with 0 criminal convictions, not even a traffic ticket. And for the ones that do have records, we're often talking about immigration-related technicalities, not violence. Things like you missed a court appearance, the expired visas, or unlawful reentry. Things that a civil matters, it's like a civil court will fix. But if you were born white in the United States, well, here's the real problem. Statistically, American-born citizens commit more of the crimes than immigrants. Way more. It's like a 2020 report by Cato Institute. It's like not exactly a left-wing organization. Found that criminal convictions rates for native-born Americans is more than double that of undocumented immigrants, and nearly 3 times higher than that of legal immigrants. Let me repeat this. Native-born citizens commit more of crimes than both undocumented and legal immigrants, including violent crimes. So when someone says they are criminals, they are dangerous, it's not just wrong, it's projection, it's racism, it's fear dressed up as policy. And the hypocrisy, it's amazing. You got white-collar crooks laundering money, committing tax fraud, ripping off investors, and getting to serve, quote-unquote, their sentence in a mansion with a yoga room. And then you got Wall Street bankers who blew up the economy in 2008, and not a single one saw a jail cell. Oh, but ICE has no problem raiding a meatpacking plant and detaining over 600 immigrant workers who were just trying to feed their kids a better life. It's like, meanwhile, someone who forgot their signal, it's like an immigrant who forgot their signal or changing lanes goes to a detention center for that's 300 miles away from their family. No lawyer, nothing, no translator, no shot of due process. And this is just, and you think this is about protecting America? No, it's about punishing the poor. Because let's be honest, we don't deport wealth, we don't deport whiteness, we don't deport vulnerable, you know the word. Can't speak anymore. And the media doesn't help many matters. Doesn't help in this situation. They toss the word illegal around like it's someone's job title. They always say illegal immigrant, illegal this, illegal this. They blast a mugshot of an immigrant who stole a pack of gum, but they are silent about American CEOs commit wage theft that totals over $15 billion a year. And that's more than all property crime combined. And let me say this again for the people in the back. This isn't about crime. Because if it were, we'd be deporting the hedge fund managers, pharma executives, real estate developers, and politicians who break the law with a smirk and press team. So, a PR team, so let's get that. But we don't, because we go to the easy targets, the voiceless, the people who cannot protect themselves. and then we call it justice, wash our hands and said the system is working, y'all. And so by now, I've been talking about how we established a lie. It is all a lie. This is all we've been doing at this point of like creating this image that all immigrants are criminals. Like I said, I don't disagree that yes, if you have committed a violent crime and you're not here legally, sure, you need to be deported, but you need to have the due process. Because if you commit a crime here in the United States, you need to answer for why you committed that crime here. Okay, so I talked about the lie. We've broken apart the myth that only the criminals are getting deported. We talked about how American-born citizens actually commit more crimes than immigrants, and we looked at the system isn't about law and order. It's about power. But here's where it gets a little more twisted. Even when the immigrants do everything right, even when they follow the rules, file the paperwork, pay the fees, and play the game, it doesn't work for them. Let me be clear. We're not talking about people who crossed the border last week. We're talking about legal residents, DACA recipients, TPS holders, people with green cards, people who paid their taxes for decades, people who live here longer than some of y'all have Amazon Prime memberships, and they still got deported. Let me start with DACA, Defer Action for Childhood Arrivals. And this was supposed to be a promise for income for kids who are from illegal families and they come in here as kids. If you were a kid and you stayed out of trouble and went to school, got a job, you are safe. But what DACA really is, it was a ticking time bomb with a work permit. It doesn't give you the pathway to citizenship. It doesn't protect your family. It can be rescinded at any moment by an executive order, by a court ruling, or by an administration that decides it doesn't like your name. It's like we've seen dreamers deported for traffic stops. We've seen them getting locked up for weeks while ICE verifies, quote unquote, their status. Now you tell me, what kind of country makes promises to kids and then rips them away for political points? Apparently the United States does. And let's talk about now the green card holders, people who are here legally as permanent residents, and they own homes, they raise kids, they run businesses, and they are veterans, military veterans. But if they make one mistake, even something petty, something they already served time for years ago, ICE can come and deport them, because under the U.S. law, certain offenses can trigger deportation, even if that happened decades ago, even if they already been paid for, and even if the person hasn't reoffended. Here's an example. Maybe you have heard of him, Miguel Perez Jr. He was a U.S. Army veteran. He deployed twice to Afghanistan, and he was diagnosed with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And he came back, struggled with substance abuse, and he was convicted for a nonviolent drug offense. And you know what he got for his service to this country? He got deported back to Mexico, a country he hasn't even lived in for 8 years, since he was 8 years old. And he had no mental health support, no reintegration help. Just thank you for your service and now get out. It's not a loophole. It's just how the system was built to be working. And you can see how the US treats certain immigrants compared to others. If you're white, wealthy, and European, this country rolls out the red carpet. But if you're from El Salvador, Sudan, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, you name it, good luck. You are here in borrowed time, or if we want you here. And if you're black and undocumented, you're 10 times more likely to be targeted by ICE, even though you make up like the smallest fraction of the undocumented population. Even on a 2020 analysis by the Black Alliance for Just Immigration, found that black immigrants are disproportionately detained and deported, often for low-level offenses. And they're also more likely to face solitary confinement and abuse in ICE custody. So don't say this is about race. Don't tell me is about legality, because the data makes it painfully clear. Because is this about the control? This is about who gets to belong and who gets to be discarded. And the trauma that creates it doesn't just impact the people getting deported. It ripples through the entire families and the communities. Kids come home from school and find their parents gone. Spouses are left scrambling to pay bills. Communities live in fear, not of crime, but of their neighbors being torn away in the middle of the night, or they're scared of their neighbors because they think that they're going to call the police on them just because they speak a different language. Tell me again, how is this justice? And I'm just going to say it. I'm going to say it once and I'll say it again. We don't deport danger. We deport dignity. We deport people who look different, who speak different, who dare to build a life in a country that keeps shifting the finish line. And the people cheering for this, the ones yelling, "Go back to your country," half of them couldn't even survive 5 minutes navigating the immigration system if the roles were reversed. The system was built to confuse, built to punish, and built to remind immigrants that no matter how hard they work or how long they've been here, they always been seen as less than. And if this doesn't piss you off, then maybe you've stopped seeing immigrants as people. So let's now stop pretending. Let's stop acting like the system is about protecting people. Let's stop pretending ICE is some noble agency keeping us safe. And let's stop telling ourselves that lie that only the criminals are getting deported. Because at this point, if you still believe that, you are not paying attention or you just don't care. Because here's what I know, and I'm speaking from experience. I am an immigrant. I came to this country and I did everything they told me I was supposed to do. I learned the language, I worked hard, I got my education, and when the time came, I put on a uniform and served the United States Marine Corps. I swore an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States, not for the rich, not for the famous, not for the ones who could buy their way out of the accountability, but for everyone. And now, I watch the same Constitution get shredded daily by an orange man-child who throws tantrums on social media. He gets convicted of 34 felonies and somehow still walks free, while working-class immigrants are locked up, deported, and treated like they're disposable or less than. I fought for this country, but I didn't fight so we could become this. I didn't wear a uniform so politicians could play Hunger Games with immigrant families. I didn't serve so ICE could become an unregulated machine of cruelty. And I damn sure didn't risk my life so some narcissistic fraud could redefine justice to mean only for people like me. We're living in a country where the law is flexible if you have money and lethal if you don't. Where a white-collar criminal gets a press conference and a pat on the back, in a PR team that says they didn't know any better, and a working-class immigrant gets a one-way ticket home. And that's when I mean home is like their country of origin. We're a corrupt president can brag about ducking accountability every day. And while the people who stock your grocery shelves get locked up for expired visas, this isn't justice. This is just political theater. It's a performance dressed up as law enforcement. This is what happens when fear wins. The fear wins over the facts, and when cruelty becomes a campaign strategy. So here's my question to you, the listener. It's no longer a question. I'm hoping you can do this. Speak up. Don't let people around you repeat the lies like only the criminals get deported. Don't sit silent when someone calls you your neighbor's enemies. And don't let the Constitution become a relic we quote in speeches but ignore in practice. Because if we don't demand better, if we don't fight for something better, this country is going to keep slipping into something none of us recognize. And the other thing, don't be scared of losing friends or who you thought were your friends. Morality and human rights are no longer a agree to disagree thing. They've never been. Being a human is the most beautiful thing to be. And to have someone say that you're less than should piss you off. And that's the most disgusting thing that we've seen in this country. And we have aggressively fast forward what racism and fascism looks like. So for everybody, I'll just say, please speak up and continue fighting the good fight. So with all that, thanks for listening this Wednesday edition of The Problem With. I'm Luis, a proud citizen, a Marine veteran, and an immigrant who still believes this country can be better than what it's become. We'll do the deep dive episodes, drops on Saturdays, and until then, stay loud, stay informed, and don't let anyone tell you silence is strength. I'll see you next time.